Hello, so it's finally time to build my first Ryzen PC, or in my case upgrading to Ryzen. So this is my old PC, it's an i7 4790K, I've been running it for about 5 years. It's my gaming PC, that's all it's used for, but it's time for an upgrade. So I've got a GTX 1080 in there, it's fine for 1080p gaming. That will get upgraded maybe when AMD releases their Navi 5800 XT. But at the moment we need to upgrade to Ryzen because, well, it's about time really, isn't it? So this is a Ryzen 5 3600. It's the best bang for buck really at the moment if you want to go onto Ryzen and you're just gaming. So I've got one of those. I've got NVMe 256 gig SSD, and that's for Windows. And then we've got some Corsair Vengeance LPX 3600 RAM. This is CL18. I was looking for CL16, but unfortunately it was massively more expensive. So I might be able to tighten the timings up. If not, that's still going to be extremely fast, so that's good. Got all my tools here, and most importantly, possibly as important as the processor, is the motherboard. So here we have the Asus Prime X570 Pro. At the time of recording this video, this is the best bang for buck X570 motherboard, £200. So this normally retails at £260. And before I purchased this, I was looking at the Asus TUF X570 Gaming, which retails for around £210. And I was also looking at the Gigabyte Aorus Elite X570 motherboard, and that's around £190 to £200 at the moment. So I was looking at those two because they seem to be the best motherboards for what I was looking for. Excellent VRMs for the price point. I was confident that those two would run nice and cool with a 3900X, even possibly a 3950X. But the only downside with those two boards is there was a few compromises. So the Asus TUF didn't have Intel LAN, the Gigabyte didn't have enough fan headers. It have the RGB AD error code in case of boot failure. The Asus didn't have the BIOS update flash sensitivity, which is really important. But I was making compromises looking at those two. Then this dropped down from £260 down to £200. Yeah, I think this is the best bang for bucks at the moment. So I'm really chuffed that I've got hold of this. And yeah, this is it. This is going to be the Ryzen build. So let's get to it. Okay, so this is the most satisfying part of the build, so we need to do this properly. Oh, that's so good. So if you reached this far into the video, congratulations. Unfortunately, while editing the video that you've just watched, I've come across loads of corrupted files. So all the B-roll, basically all the stuff after this point is gone. So I can either scrap the video, which obviously we're not going to do because we've watched it this far. I'm going to do some tips and tricks because the installation really went, well, without a hitch. It was actually one of the easiest upgrades and PC builds that I've done for as long as I can remember. So at this point, rather than just kind of scrap the video, I'm going to do a tips and tricks. So how to get the best out of your PC once you've built it and switched it on for the first time. So let's go and do that. So the first thing to do is go to the Asus website, And then what we want to do is go to the product page and find our motherboard. And in my case, it's the Asus Prime X570 Pro. And then what we want to do is select support, go to drivers, choose your operating system, and then download the latest BIOS. This is very important to make sure that your processor is, and your compatibility of your memory and everything else is running as well as it can possibly be. So this is the first step. You also have your audio drivers, your LAN, utilities and so forth. What we're not going to download from this page though is the chipset, and we're going to do that on AMD's own site because we're guaranteed the latest drivers there. Okay, so to download the chipset for your motherboard, we're going to AMD's website and we're going to chipsets. So we're going to click on AM4, my motherboard's the X570. So we're going to submit, and there we go, we have the latest chipset driver. So we're going to download it from here. Now while in here you can also go to your processor, Ryzen, and then pick the processor that you have, submit, and then you can also download the AMD Ryzen Master software. Now I've chosen not to do this, and the reason being is I'm going to do this within the BIOS, which I'll show you in a moment. So the first thing to do is turn your computer on, hit delete, and then go into the BIOS and find the section where you can update the BIOS. My preference to update the BIOS is always via a USB stick, so I always update the BIOS via a storage device attached to a USB port on the back of the computer. Follow the on-screen instructions and under no circumstances turn the computer off while the update is in progress. If you're unsure about any of this, don't do it and get someone who knows what they're doing and is confident in what they're doing. So the next step for me on this motherboard is to activate DOCP, which is an Asus BIOS feature on the AMD platforms that effectively translates the XMP settings to a compatible AMD format. This allows you to basically use the faster XMP profiles of your RAM sticks on AMD motherboards. So the final step in the BIOS is to go to Precision Boost Overdrive and set the Precision Boost Overdrive to enable, and then also go to the Max CPU Boost Clock Overdrive and set that to 100. Now this will allow you to get the best out of your processor at the moment. Now at the time of making this video, AMD have announced that there is going to be a new BIOS update which will improve the boosting features of the Ryzen processors and allow them to hit their rated boost clock speeds on a single core. With all that said, personally I disable this feature at the moment because I prefer the slightly lower temperatures, and to be honest I don't really notice hardly any difference in performance. There are two programs that I like to use on a regular basis. One of them is Hardware Info. Make sure you use the sensors only setting and then run that. And the other one is CPU-Z. CPU-Z is very good for just checking out how your system's running, what components you've got. So for example, you can see here with CPU-Z that the memory is running at 3600 megahertz, and we're also running at CO18. So the DOCP or the XMP settings that we set in the BIOS are working and active. With PBO and Auto OC enabled in the BIOS, I'm stressing all cores on CPU using CPU-Z, and we're achieving 4.042 megahertz. Now that's only 50 megahertz more than if I have PBO disabled. Now the interesting thing is we get exactly the same single core boost speed of 4.142 megahertz whether PBO is enabled or disabled. So that's why I choose to disable it, because it runs a little bit cooler and really, I don't see the benefit of it at all. Maybe when the new update in a week or two to the BIOS arrives from AMD, that might make a difference, which is why I've shown you these two bits of software so you can play around with it and ascertain what settings work best for you. Well, there you have it. That was one of my more adventurous videos. It was very difficult to finally get it all together with all the issues, but I hope that's helped someone somewhere out there. Thanks for watching.